real good at that too. So there's hope.
All right. Next we got Judge Donna Stroud, and if you would come and speak to us, please, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with y'all. And I'm Judge Donna Stroud. I'm on the North Carolina Court of Appeals, and I'm very blessed this year to be running unopposed. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to take the opportunity to tell you a little more about the Court of Appeals, because it's probably the lead judicial elections overall, because like I said, mine is fortunately unopposed. But anyway, I was born and raised in Kinston, North Carolina. My mother was an elementary teacher. My father worked at DuPont. I got the idea in 3rd grade I wanted to be a lawyer. I don't know why. I'd never met one. They're none in my family. No one had been to college in my family. But anyway, that idea stuck with me all through the rest of school. I went to Campbell University, majoring, of course, in pre-law government because I wanted to go to law school. Graduated in 3 years because I was in a hurry, and it's cheaper that way. And went to Campbell Law School and absolutely loved it. Was first in my class every year, and I'm basically a law geek, in other words. When I got out of law school, I wanted to get out into the real world and get into a courtroom, so I went in a law firm in Eastern Wake County in Wendell that had a very broad practice and was literally in a courtroom in Superior Court with one of my partners, of course, trying a jury trial when I got my bar exam results, which fortunately were good, and so I was in court, all the time, basically for my 16 years of practice before I became a judge. I was a district court judge in Wake County originally, and which of course the same court that Bill Southern is on now. So that district court trial judge experience is extremely important for the appellate judges. And then in 2006 ran for the Court of Appeals and have been there ever since and absolutely love it. Also teach judicial process as an adjunct at Campbell, and right now I'm finishing up my LLM or Master of Laws at Duke Law School in Judicial Studies, which I should turn in my thesis tomorrow, I think. So I'm pretty excited about that. It was a really neat program. You might be interested too we had some very good teachers at this program. One was Justice Scalia and one was Justice Alito. Yes, Justice Alito literally graded my paper. So that was pretty cool, and I did well. Anyway, just a little bit about the Court of Appeals. Like I said, it's an appellate court. Now, the court that you're most familiar with are the trial courts. Your district court, your superior court, those are the ones when you see trials on TV and you see, a murder trial or something like that, it's your superior court. The Court of Appeals is a court where all of the trial courts in the state and administrative agencies, people can appeal to if they think a legal error has been made. And then we consider that, and then we write opinions. That's what we produce. We write opinions on the law, and when you see those walls full of books, with little numbers on the side, the spine. All lawyers always have their picture taken in front of that wall with all the books. Those are the things we write. We write the stuff that's in those books. And we write a lot of those things. We write about 100 opinions a year for each judge. There are 15 judges on the court. So I've written about 700 while I've been on the court. And you can read those. They're available online, nccourts.org. It's got links for all the courts. The opinions are there for the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals, so you can look at those. And I can tell you whatever I want to about what I do, but you can go look and see what I have actually done. And I hope you'll do that for all the judges. And like I said, I want to, Judge Southern told you a little bit about the races this year, but it is confusing with the judicial races because there's so many, and there's the two different courts, the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. And so I had prepared, and I had done this for another group, so I just sort of updated it for you. It's a little summary of the races. It's just very brief, and it just tells you all the seats that are up and who's running for them, the party affiliations of the candidates. So it's just a very brief, simple thing. I'll just pass out, like I said, preview of the judicial races. I think I have about 30 of them, so there might not be enough. But like I said, it is confusing because we have for example, Judge Bob Hunter on my court's running for a seat on the Supreme Court. We've got, Justice Mark Martin, who's already on the Supreme Court, running for a different seat on the Supreme Court, so it gets confusing. And I thought the best way to do it is just to lay it out for you in a listing of all the seats. And, of course, you've already heard some about the Court of Appeals races from Judge Southern. You'll hear more about the Supreme Court from Jeanette Norton, so she'll tell you some more about that. So anyway, that's just sort of a little preview, and I'd really like, if y'all have questions, try to, well, let's see, I need to answer the first question that you asked about the Constitution. The Constitution is the thing that we swear an oath to go by, to enforce the law in accordance with. That's what we do, the United States Constitution and the North Carolina Constitution. And the Constitution of North Carolina sometimes has been sort of maybe neglected in the law. We're seeing more cases under the North Carolina Constitution. But both of those are the things that guide us. I mean, that's just all there is to it. And that's certainly what I've tried to do in all of my cases. I had a case one time that, sometimes most of our cases people don't pay much attention to. Sometimes cases, there'll be a newspaper article about them or some comment about them, and I had a case that there was an article about them. I was looking on the website and someone had made a comment about it and said, well, finally, a judge who says the law means what it says. And I thought that was a good compliment. That's what I try to be, a judge who says that the law means what it says, in accordance with the Constitution. And if the law is not in accordance with it, then we reverse that. So that's the short answer. And like I said, I'd be very happy to answer any questions y'all have.
When you write your opinions, the different influences you have, how do you keep that separate? I don't know what your heart says, but you go by the Constitution and what the law says. How do you keep your opinion out of that and just go by the law?
Yeah, that's a good question. As in my judicial process class, we spend hours talking about that. Of course, it's something that I think judges and lawyers, one thing we really have to train ourselves to do. Everybody has their own background. Everybody has the influences, just from when they grew up and their beliefs and whatever. We all have that. And the first thing is to be aware of that. Because if you're not aware of that, then you might be unconsciously influenced by it. And, so you number one have to be aware of it. But like I said, it's true of everybody. No human exists who doesn't have that. So you have to be aware of that. And then as a judge, especially on the Court of Appeals, but in any court, we have to rule based on evidence that's presented. We have to rule based on the law that's presented, the arguments that are presented. And so we have to confine ourselves to that. Sometimes, certainly at the Court of Appeals, we will see cases where an argument has not been presented that perhaps should have been. But we can't address that because the law says we have to address what's presented to us, except in some very limited circumstances. If the evidence was not there, the evidence was not there. We have to deal with what is brought to us. And, sometimes we see cases that, you may think, well, why don't we have that there? Isn't there? We have to deal with what we have. And so that's what we do. And that's something that we really have to train ourselves to do.